The last lesson introduced us to the fact that France was not a republic in the 1700s. Instead, what we had was the Kingdom of France. Now, a kingdom is ruled by one person or a group of persons. Kingdoms, empires were ruled mostly by the emperors or the monarchs. Now, in this regard, we should now talk about the French political setup as it was before the outbreak of the French Revolution. Because as students of history, we will have to go back to a time when different changes were happening in the French society, and it is from that point that we will be able to understand and trace why the French Revolution broke out in the first place. So let us now begin our discussion on the French society before the outbreak of the French Revolution. The French Revolution broke out in the year 1789. Now, since the medieval period, a particular kind of political system was prevalent in the Kingdom of France. Now, we refer to this period when a different political and social system was prevalent in France as the old regime. So, the old regime came to an end with the French Revolution. But now that we are talking about what happened in the Kingdom of France before the outbreak of the French Revolution, we shall now start discussing the political system of the Kingdom of France during the old regime. Now, the Kingdom of France during this period was an absolute monarchy. But if we are to understand what this concept of absolute monarchy means, we should begin with talking about what monarchy in itself means. Now, a monarchy is a form of government in which a king or a monarch is at the head or the helm of power. So, in monarchy, it is just one person who gets to rule that territorial unit. It is not a group of people who rules that territorial unit. And monarchies are also hereditary in nature. What does this mean? This means that after the death of a king or a monarch, it will be his son, his daughter, or any other relative in the royal family who would become the next king, queen, or monarch. So this is how monarchies used to function. And we learned that the Kingdom of France was an absolute monarchy during the old regime. So what does absolute monarchy mean? In absolute monarchies, absolute or complete power lies in the hands of the king or the monarch. Let me tell you something interesting in this regard. In monarchies, the power of the king or the monarch could be reduced after a certain point of time. Now, this was not an easy process, but the power could be reduced nevertheless. But in absolute monarchies, the monarch rules like an autocratic ruler. So, it is the monarch's say that is final in an absolute monarchy. Now, I am sure you are very curious to know who this absolute monarch was of the Kingdom of France just before the outbreak of the French Revolution. Well, it was King Louis XVI. Now, King Louis XVI was the monarch of the Kingdom of France just before the outbreak of the French Revolution. And his wife, the Austrian princess Marie Antoinette, was the queen consort. Now, what does a queen consort mean? A queen consort is the wife of a monarch or an emperor. And this is different from a queen regnant, in which it is a female ruler of a monarchy or an empire. Now, keep these names of King Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette in your minds. This is because they will play a very important role in the outbreak of the French Revolution, and we shall be discussing their role in the outbreak of the French Revolution subsequently. Now, commit the names of King Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette to your memory. This is because they will play a very important role in the outbreak of the French Revolution that we shall discuss subsequently. Now we have learnt that King Louis XVI was an absolute monarch in the Kingdom of France, and we know who was at the helm of power. But how was the French society divided? Which were the people who lived in the French society? Let us now get into discussing that. So let us now find out how the French society was divided. Who were the people who lived in the Kingdom of France during the old regime? Well, at the top of the French society was the French monarch, and he was followed by the clergy. After the clergy came the royalty and nobility who owned lands and property, and then came the rest of the French population. Now the French society was divided in a tripartite structure, as you can see here, and at the top of this tripartite structure was the monarch. The first estate comprised the clergy, the second estate comprised the royalty nobility, and the third estate comprised the bourgeoisie and peasantry. So we just learnt about the tripartite system of the French society in the form of the estate system that was prevalent during the old regime. We learnt that the monarch was beyond this estate system because he was at the helm of power. And the estate system was divided among the three estates, in which the clergy comprised the first estate, the royalty and nobility comprised the second estate, and all the rest of the population comprised the third estate. Now it is imperative on our part to find out the division of population among the three estates. Which estate do you think was numerically very dominant? Well, the clergy comprised only 0.5% of the population, and the royalty and nobility who belonged to the second estate comprised only 1.5% of the population. So just by seeing these figures 0.5% and 1.5%, you can understand that they were not at all numerically dominant in the population. But the third estate comprised 98% of the population. This is because the third estate comprised all the people apart from the monarch, the clergy, and the royalty and nobility who lived in the French society. So it goes without saying that the third estate was the most numerically dominant. Now the members of the third estate were also referred to as the commoners. And in this category of the commoners, even the richest of merchants of France and the poorest of peasants belonged together. So you can understand that this was a heterogeneous social grouping, because people from different rungs of the society, people possessing different amounts of wealth and resources, were together clubbed in the third estate. Now out of this 98% of the population that was comprised by the third estate, the peasants comprised around 90% of the third estate. So within the third estate itself, you can understand that it were the peasants who were very dominant. But you must be thinking that there was a division of power in the French society in accordance with the division of population. Well, that will be a separate point of discussion that we shall take up later on. Having learnt about the estate system that was prevalent during the old regime, I am sure you are very curious to know how did the monarch consult the members of the three estates. We have learnt that the monarch was not a part of the estate system because he was beyond this tripartite division of the French society. So how do you think did he consult the members of the three estates? Well, there existed a body or a sort of a representative assembly known as the Estates General, and it is through this body that the French monarch consulted the members of all the three estates. Now let me ask you a question before proceeding with this lesson any further. through which body did the French monarch consult the members of the three estates? Was it done through the National Assembly, the National Convention, the Estates General, or the Directory? Well, the correct answer is the Estates General. It was a kind of a representative assembly or a council through which the monarch consulted the members of the three estates. Now, the very fact that the Estates General was a kind of a representative assembly establishes the point that representatives of all the three estates were there in the Estates General. Well, you might be thinking that this is all very fair, because members of all the three estates got their own say, got their own representation in the Estates General. Well, to what extent this Estates General was really representative in nature is something that we shall discuss later on. But for now, let me tell you a little more about the constitution of the Estates General. Now, this Estates General as a representative assembly was quite different from the parliaments that we have in today's world. Because in the parliaments in the modern independent democratic nation states, people's say plays a very important role. But on the other hand, you must remember that this Estates General was not a permanent body. It was a temporary body or a temporary representative assembly. But I'm sure you are questioning when and how did this Estates General function? Well, it happened only on the monarch's recommendation. Because when the French monarch felt that he needed the Estates General to exist and function, he recommended or he extended recommendations to the Estates General. Now, the French monarch used to extend this recommendation to the Estates General only in times of crisis and need. Now, two very important points that we need to keep in our minds about the Estates General would be that firstly, it was not a permanent body, and secondly, it was the monarch who got to decide whether it was a time of crisis and need and whether the Estates General was needed to function. This is because the French monarch was an absolute monarch, as we have just discussed. So his say, his rule was final in the land. Now that the Estates General was a temporary body, the French monarch also treated it likewise. Because it was the French monarch who got to decide whether he needed the Estates General to make it function. Now, a very important point would be that the Estates General was a representative body. And if the French monarch did not want to summon this representative body to existence, it means that the members of the other three estates did not really have much of a say in the French political setup. Well, this is what had happened before the outbreak of the French Revolution. Because for 175 long years, the French monarchs who came to power did not summon the Estates General. It was last summoned in 1614, as you can see here in this illustration. It was locked for 175 whole years before the outbreak of the French Revolution. From this, you can understand that the members of the three estates must have been very enraged, must have been very infuriated, because they were not able to exercise their voices. They were not able to exercise their say in the French political setup. Now, all this while we have been talking about how the French political setup was during the old regime. In a subsequent lesson, we will talk about the French economic setup as it was before the outbreak of the French Revolution. And subsequently, together we will try to understand why all these were factors and reasons that contributed to the outbreak of the French Revolution. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon. You can also register for free at deltastep.com or download the DeltaStep app to learn one-to-one with our amazing teachers or to get access to all our 5,000 plus amazing videos as per your school syllabus. Master each topic with our adaptive practice technology. Get million plus questions with step-by-step solutions and unlimited mock tests. Get all your doubts resolved instantly. Learn via games and win amazing prizes like PlayStations and iPads. So at DeltaStep, learning is not just fun and easy, it's rewarding too. So register for free now.